Ngayong gabi sa Diyos at Bayan, Telemedicine Act, inihain sa Kongreso. Konsultasyon sa doktor kahit nasa bahay lang, magiging solusyon ba ito sa mas accessible na healthcare? Abangan sa Tapatang Diyos at Bayan. Ano naman kaya ang reaksyon o pagtingin ng mga Pilipino patungkol sa telemedicine? Magtitiwala kaya sila sa ganitong paraan ng pagpapacheck up? Alamin ang kanilang opinyon sa Nakakaalarma. Magandang gabi Pilipinas, ako po si Kata Inocencio. At ito ang Diyos at Bayan, ang programang naninindigan sa katotohanan, katarungan at katwiran.
Alam nyo ba, nahuli ang Pilipinas sa health system kumpara sa ibang ASEAN countries? Kulang ang ospital at kama. Ayon sa standard, dapat 30 minutes lang ang biyahe para makarating sa health center. Pero more than 50% ng mga Pilipino ay hindi nakakaabot dito. Kaya naman dumalo kami sa isang lugar. Kung mapapansin ninyo, isa lang ang daanan. Walang alternate route at wala rin public transportation tulad ng jeep, bus, tricycle o taxi. Magtanong tayo sa mga tao na kinailangan pumunta sa ospital noon. Gaano nga ba kalayo ito sa kanila? Ako si David Paul Farma. Tara, samahan niyo ako.
Mga 2 oras po.
1 oras.
Mga 15 kilometers po siguro.
3 oras po.
Malayo, mga 3 oras yatang biyahe.
Meron po bang mga public transportation po dito palabas?
Wala po. Sarili-sarili lang po naming motor. Wala pong mga namamasada po dito. Tapos pong yung iba sa barangay po nahihiram. Pagka halimbawa po nagkaroon emergency.
Meron po ba kayong mga naranasang problema dahil malayo po ang ospital?
Dito sa anak ko po. Nang nagka-convulsion po siya. Nahirapan po kami nung kumuha ng service kasi walang tricycle. Mahirap po yung pag-ano ng gasolina. Nung time na yon, wala po kasi yung kinakasama ko. Buntis pa po ako. Yung una po na-confine, San Fernando po, Pampanga.
Gaano po kalayo yun?
Baka mga 3 oras. Kasi hindi po siya tinanggap dyan. Tinatanggihan po.
Yung bago ko dalayin sa ospital, yung mata ko nang namula na, nakagdudura ng dugo. Nagbi-bleed na yung ngipin. Hindi na ako yung lakad ng maayos kasi natuyuan ako ng platelet. Tapos nagharap pa kami ng motor para madala ako doon sa housing, doon para maabot ng ambulansya. Naghintay pa po kami ron.
Mga gaano po katagal?
Hindi ko maano kasi sobrang sakit ng
Dinala ako sa orthopedic, doon ako nagpagamot. Kaso lang, hindi ako makapatuloy sa malayo. Nagbabayad pa kami sa sakyan, mahigit 1,000.
Yung orthopedic po, gaano kalayo?
Quezon City.
3 oras yatang biyahe,
Ilang beses na po kayo bumalik po doon sa Quezon City?
mahigit 20.
Mga karanasan nyo po na nahirapan kayo dahil malayo po ang ospital dito sa inyo?
Dito minsan, sumasakit ko rito sa dibdib ko. Kung sinasakal ako. Nung nakaraan gabi nga ako, baka din ako maumagahan at nang parang napakasakit ko rito ko. So, kasakaling sobrang di na taga-matias, punta doon.
Ay, gaya nung anak ko pala dyan, dapat magpaano yon sa garay. Ngayon, pumunta, nakisabay lang sa service ng estudyante, mataas ang dugo, nahihilo. Nakisabay lang kanina alas 9 sa mga bata.
Bago po siya nakasakay, mga gaano po katagal?
Mula alas 6 dapat alas 6, andun na dapat siya sa ospital. Ngayon, alas 9 na siya nakaalis dito.
Sinusulong ng Sibak Party List ang Telemedicine Act para mas madali ang access sa doktor kahit malayo ang pasyente. Ilang halimbawa ng serbisyong kasama rito ay consultation, diagnosis at prescription. Pwede ito kahit hindi video call, kahit phone call lang, basta malinaw ang signal. Ilang sakit kaya ang pwede agad maagapan kung may online consultation? Ilan ang makakatipid sa pamasahe o pagkain papuntang ospital? Ilang oras, ilang araw, ilang buhay kaya ang nasasayang dahil sa delay na check-up? Kung may sasabatas ang Telemedicine Act, mas mapapabilis ang check-up at mas kaunti ang abala at gastos ng bawat pamilya. Kaya sa susunod na kailanganin mo ng doktor, hindi mo na kailangan bumiyahe ng malayo o maghintay ng matagal. Muli, ako si David Paul Farma. Paalam!
pandemya, nauso ang paggamit ng iba't ibang online platforms para sa pang-araw-araw na trabaho at eskwela. Kabilang na rin dito ang pagpapacheck up ng kalusugan. Tinatawag ito bilang telemedicine. Ang telemedicine ay layong makapagbigay ng health services sa mga pasyente kahit na ang mga medical professionals, lalo na ang mga doktor, ay nasa malayong lugar. Nagkaroon ito ng makasaysayang tungkulin noong COVID-19 pandemic upang tugunan ang issue ng pahirapang pagpapakonsulta sa panahong ito. Sa katunayan, mahigit 48% ng kamatayan sa Pilipinas noong 2022 ay dahil sa hindi pagtingin ng isang health professional or doktor ayon sa DOH. At noong 2023, napag-alaman ang kainaman ng telemedicine bilang isang paraan para sa mga doktor at pasyente. Ngunit hindi ito naipapatupad ng maayos dahil sa mga systemic gaps sa polisiya, training at digital access. Kaya naman layo ng Citizens Battle Against Corruption o CBAC sa pangunguna ni Representative Brother Eddie C. Villanueva ang ma-institutionalize ang paraan ng telemedicine sa Pilipinas upang ito ay magamit ng maayos ng maraming mga Pilipino. Ngayon, alamin po natin ang kagandahan ng telemedicine bilang isang paraan ng konsultasyon at bakit natin kinakailangang maisabatas ang Telemedicine Act sa Pilipinas. Tapatan na po tayo kasama si Attorney Cathy Valencia, ang third nominee ng CBAC Party List. At mamaya po makakasama natin si Dr. Marivic Villa, siyang Director ng Villa Health Center sa Florida at Chairperson ng World Council of Health, Florida. Welcome to Diyos at Bayan, Attorney Cathy Valencia. Unang-una ko pong tanong sa inyo, ano po ba talaga itong Telemedicine Act?
Good afternoon po, Ma'am Kata. Ito po ay isa sa mga House bills na sponsoran po ng ating pong Honorable Congressman Brother Eddie C. Villanueva under CBAC Party List upang ma-institutionalize po ang tinatawag nating National Telemedicine System. Ang panukalang ito ay gustong marating ang isang or mai-implement ang karapatan ng bawat Filipino under the Philippine Constitution. Alam natin na karapatan natin na maka-access, maka-avail ng tinatawag nating right to health at ma-instill ang lahat po ng mga health, yung health consciousness po sa mga Filipinos. At sa ngayon po, no, dahil wala po itong batas na ito, hindi pa po na ipapasa, wala pa po tayong tinatawag po na system kung saan ang lahat po ng kailanganin po upang may patupad ang tinatawag nating telemedicine system ay ma-implement po fully. Yan po.
Siguro bigyan niyo po kami ng ilang details tungkol po sa nilalaman ng bill na ito. Ano po bang maaring asahan natin at bakit po ba ito ay importante na maganap na sana po sa lalong madaling panahon?
Kagaya po ng sinabi niyo po, napakahalaga po ang pag-facilitate and pag-provide po ng medical services, especially noong COVID-19. So noong COVID-19, hindi na po kailangan na pumunta po tayo, di ba, sa hospital. Dahil doon mismo sa ating mga bahay, ay dapat makareceive ka na ng agara na health services. So itong bill na ito, it seeks to, sinabi ko kanina po, to institutionalize a national telemedicine system. Kung saan po communications technology para ma-provide ang mas comprehensive and unified po na struktura ng pag-deliver po ng healthcare services, lalo na po sa mga remote areas, no, sa mga lugar na sabi natin napakalayo sila sa mga healthcare facilities, okay? At the same time po na hindi ma-compromise ang quality of healthcare services na tatanggapin nila through this telemedicine system po. So, mas magiging agara po na ma-extend yung life-saving medical attention sa lahat po na nangailangan sa mga lugar, kagaya sinabi ko po, remote or urban poor communities, no, even yung mga sa panahon po ng disaster, hindi po madali, especially pag nakat po ang public transportation. So, mas makatanggap po sila. No, ang ating po mga kababayan, makakatanggap sila ng agara at even po quality na ma-deliver sa kanila ang healthcare provisions,
Okay.
Ma'am Kata.
Yeah, attorney, ano po bang saklaw dito sa Telemedicine Act? Lahat po pa ng uri ng online medication or medical consultations ay kasama po ba dito or meron pong mga limitations? Halimbawa po, doon po sa mga malalalang kaso or those that need surgery, ay pwede po bang ikonsulta yun online?
Doon po sa proposed bill, nakalagay po doon that ito po ay magpo-provide ng tinatawag nating healthcare services kasama ang consultation, kasama rin po ang diagnosis, kasama po ang treatment and even po prescription. So sa mga areas po na inadequate, kay malayo po sila sa or yung may kahirapan na tumanggap sila sa traditional po na healthcare services, sila po ay makaka-avail nito. So, kumbaga po, naipapalapit natin sa kanila ang lahat po ng klase ng healthcare services. Although po, may mga limitations, kagaya po yung tinatawag po nating minsan klase ng surgery na syempre po, hindi naman po pwede yun na tele or through communications lamang po and information. Kaya may mga limitations po na brought by inadequate po na gamit din kung saan sila naroon at the time na nag-avail sila ng benefits po ng tinatawag nating telemedicine. Kaya lang po, mas magiging accessible nga po ang ating pong pag-provide ng quality healthcare services sa kanila kung ito po ay magiging batas. Yan
Ayan.
po.
Meron po ba mga specific na mga espesyalista ang pwede lamang mag-practice nitong telemedicine? Meron po bang mga hindi po pwedeng mag-practice? At saka, meron po ba silang kailangang lisensya para magbigay ng konsultasyon at pagbigay ng diagnosis via online at hindi po face-to-face o personal? May limitation po bang ganon?
We have under the proposed bill, magbubuo po ng tinatawag nating National Telemedicine Council kung saan sila po ang magpo-provide ng mga guidelines, no, para po ma-implement ang proposed bill na ito. But as of the provisions po, as per the provisions, ang kailangan lamang po ay registered physician. So that means pasado po, no, sa Philippine Medicine Licensure Examination.
Magkakaroon po ba ng basic or major directory that's available, ano po, so that alam ng mga tao na hindi quack doctor lang yung kanilang konsulta, kundi registered, legitimate doctor po?
Of course, kasama rin po ito sa guidelines na ipoprovide po, no, ng mabubuo po ng at the same time yung implementing agency po ng DOH, no, ito po ay magsasagawa rin as they will create this Office of the Telemedicine, may mga guidelines po para maiwasan ang mga fraudulent practice or illegal practice po of tinatawag po natin na telemedicine. Tama po kayo dahil napakalayo nga po yung lugar, no? So pwede pong may mga tao mag-pretend as doctors, no? Kaya lang po nakalagay naman po diyan na those who are licensed to or registered physicians, so ibig sabihin licensed to practice medicine. At alam naman po natin na meron din pong kaukulan po na pwede pong ikaaso sa mga tao na nagpapanggap ng mga doktor and yet they are not allowed to practice medicine po.
Siguro there should be, if I could suggest, at kung wala pa po sa guideline, is that there should be a confirmation for the patient to confirm, let's say, with a certain clinic or hospital, kung talaga pong doktor yung kanilang makukonsulta. Ano po? So that,
yes, ma'am.
opo, di po ba,
Okay.
para po sigurado. Although, syempre, mahirap gawin yan nationwide dahil kundi haba masyadong listahan. Is that maybe all of those doctors who are willing to do telemedicine should enlist themselves, no? And be themselves registered in a specific hospital or clinic. Ang tanong po ng marami, ito po ba ay libre or usually kailangan magbayad ng usual fee ng doktor?
So under the proposed bill po, wala pong difference doon po sa ating pong traditional at the same time versus or vis-a-vis po itong tinatawag po nating telemedicine. Meron naman po tayong mga ways on how to avail yung mga benefits po under the PhilHealth. Kaya po kasama actually po ang Director General or yung President po ng Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, kasama po siya sa tinatawag nating National Telemedicine Council para po sa paggawa ng guidelines on how to avail the services po under this proposed act or under this proposed legislation po, ma'am. Okay, kung paano po ma-avail ang lahat ng healthcare benefits and services under the Philippine Health or PhilHealth po na law, okay, ito rin po ay magiging available din po rito.
For my experience po, ma'am, nung nagko-consulta po ko via online or telemedicine, usually po required na magbayad muna and show proof of payment bago i-confirm yung appointment para sigurado pong yung ating mga doktor ay nababayaran.
Yes naman po, in the spirit of fairness, kung sa traditional nga po, ma'am, nagbabayad tayo, ito po ay dapat din mabayaran ang mga services nila. But again, we have programs, government programs na maka-avail ang mga tao ng healthcare benefits using the programs of the government po, kagaya sa PhilHealth.
How does our PhilHealth be affected by this? Apektado po ba or ma-access po ba namin ang aming PhilHealth benefit through online?
Yes po, isa po sa mga provisions po na wala pong made-deny na karapatan po ang bawat Filipino. Actually, mas maganda nga po ito dahil magagamit natin ano po yung ating PhilHealth. Kasi right now sa traditional medicine, you have to go to the hospital, para ma-avail yung benefit na ito. Pero dito, by availing itong telemedicine, pwede natin gamitin nating PhilHealth po.
How about who in the area po of accessing or receiving prescriptions at saka required medical certificates? Ito po ba ay nadadaan din online? I-email po ba ito? Ano pong sistema ang gagawin natin para makuha ng ating pasyente yung kinakailangan nilang prescription? At saka yung required medical certificate kung minsan hinihingi po yan.
Yes po. Under the proposed law po, nakasaad po sa Section 16 po na yung mabubuo na National Telemedicine Council, may responsibility po to establish yung tinatawag nating system para magkaroon ng electronic prescription. Siyempre po, kailangan natin ng lahat po dito electronic So kasama na rin po rito na it will be covered by or it is part of the function po ng council to establish a system for electronic prescription of medicine or of services po. Kaya hindi po ito, kumbaga, hindi po siya nagbibigay ng burden, kundi nag-i-ease ng burden kasi mas madali pong i-avail mo yung electronic po na certificate, online medical certificates o ano man po yung prescription na yon. Kung yung mga tao naman po na sabi natin hindi maganda ang kanilang layunin, may mga taong gagamitin nila yung mga bagay na yon against the individual na may-ari po dun sa medical certificate na yon. We have also provisions po doon na gwardyado po ito, yung right to privacy. Actually po binigyan po yan ng isang provision po dun pa sa Section 10. Meron pong provision sa proposed bill ng House Bill 4199 on privacy po. Kasi lahat ng medical records that will be generated or that will be issued, lahat po, kahit po yung recording ng video, audio, electronic, other and other things po na involved sa telemedicine practice, kailangan po mag-conform sa ating laws on confidentiality. Lahat ng healthcare information about the patient, hindi po pwedeng i-violate po yon. Sakop po lahat nito. Kaya kumbaga po sa records or record keeping, strict may privacy po ang mga records ng isang pasyente po, and any violation nakalagay doon, this will be penalized by the maximum extent under the law. Kaya same thing po na wala tayong takot dahil safeguarded po ang privacy po natin.
Oo nga po kasi even now, hindi ho ba may privacy or confidentiality rather, relationship ang doktor at saka pasyente. So I guess it
Yes
also
po.
translates, no? Diyan po sa telemedicine or online meeting ng doktor at saka ng pasyente. Pero ma'am, tanong ko po, paano po kung kinakailangan na ng pasyente i-palpate yung kanilang kung meron man pong namamaga, hindi na ho pwedeng gawin yun sa sa mata lang, ano? So ire-require na rin po nung doktor yung pasyente na tumuloy sa isang ospital upang dun sila matignan sa loob or ano.
Vital signs.
Opo, pati yung mga laboratory na kailangan, kailangan pumunta pa rin po sila, hindi po ba, sa ospital?
Ma'am Kata, yung standard of care po sa traditional or tatawag natin non-telemedicine practice po ay the same na standard of care. So kasama na po yon yung tinatawag po natin pagkuha ng mga bagay na yon kung kailangan po para magkaroon ng sufficient basis ang doktor, no, sa pagbibigay po niya ng tamang prescription or tamang intervention, medical
Yeah.
intervention.
Yeah. From experience po, minsan po, ang sasabihin ng doktor mag-i-issue siya kaagad ng request for a lab test or blood test. So that by the time bumalik ka sa doktor at magkita kayo, ay may resulta na at mas madali po niyang i-diagnose yung pasyente. Hindi po ba? So I guess it works that way. It's just a matter of universalizing the availability of telemedicine. Kaya lang po, ang tanong ko po, ay matutulungan po ba yung maraming Pilipino, lalo na po yung ating mahihirap na mga kababayan na wala namang access sa internet para po ba sa mayaman lamang itong telemedicine? Dahil ayon po sa Nielsen survey, 87% daw po ng mga Pilipino sa rural areas ang may access sa internet, pero paano po ito magiging accessible o walang access rather, at paano po ito magiging accessible sa mga rural Filipinos?
Tama ma'am, may relationship po ng yung implementation nito related doon sa availability po ng ating pong internet connection. Sa Pilipinas naman po yung 87% po kaya sinasabi na may access sa internet, malaking portion na po yun ng population. And out of those 87% na may access sa internet, wala pa rin po access sa medicine. Kaya po napakahalaga po na i-improve din po syempre ang ating pong internet, no, ang ating pong signal or internet capacity.
Baka,
Tama po.
pwede kong dagdag lang na suggestion kung wala pa po. Baka kailangan mag-set up lang on the city hall, municipal hall or something, some kind of an internet cafe or an internet clinic where those who will seek medical assistance or consultation can access that at may malakas pong wifi. Hindi po
Yes,
ba?
ma'am.
Kasi kung nasa liblib silang lugar, baka mahina po yung signal nila or limited yung kanilang load sa kanilang mobile or computers. If it's accessible now to all, siguro mas madali na po. Pupunta na lamang sila doon sa Yun nga lang, lalabas pa rin sila ng bahay kung let's say COVID na naman or some form of virus, delikado nga pong lumabas ulit. But meantime, kahit may COVID o wala, this is still a good means, no, for our people to have access to medical care through online or
Yes.
telemedicine. Okay, ma'am, tanong ko po, for example, yung mga malilimitahan ba or mape-prevent ba yung mga nagbebenta ng mga gamot or mga natural medicines na magiging available din dito? Or kanya-kanyang negosyo na sila, hindi ho sila kasama dito sa batas na ito na na magkaka-access yung ating mga kababayan doon sa kanilang mga produkto?
Isa po sa mga members, no, intended members po ng National Telemedicine Council ay yung ating pong Bureau of yung Director General po ng ating Bureau of Food and I mean Director General po ng Food and Drug Administration. Um, I believe po na kasama rin po ito na ita-tackle, no? Dahil pwede kasing ma-exploit din po ito ng mga hindi naman or authorized po na nagbebenta. And then gagamitin nila na parang prescription po yon. Okay, this is a violation po of the intended act. And actually it's a violation po of our existing po na mga laws, okay, regarding um, illegal prescription or unlawful prescription po, no, mga ganon. So I think that is covered also by this intended
Oh,
measure, ma'am.
pero sana naman po wag masyado ring maghigpit kasi maganda rin yung mga natural products ano, and of course these are some of them are not approved by the FDA or not
Yeah.
necessarily prescribed by doctors or in traditional who practice traditional medicine because marami na rin po tayong mga naturopaths.
Natural, yeah.
Oo. So sana po hindi naman ma-prevent or kumbaga ma-exempt sila from practicing yung naturopath medicine. Okay, ma'am, ito naman ang tanong ko bago rin tayo magtapos sa portion na ito, ano po, and paano po kaya mapoprotektahan naman yung karapatan ng ating mga kababayan laban po sa potential or posibilidad na magkaroon ng malpractice sa pagpapaganap po nitong Telemedicine Act?
Okay. As of now, ma'am, meron pa rin po tayong mga batas naman po. Una, okay, marami po tayong may mga measures po, existing laws na mag-protect ng karapatan ng mga Filipinos with regard to such unlawful practices. Okay, una po, no, we have the Medical Act of 1959, no, yung Republic Act 2382, no? Kasi ito po yung kumbaga, ito yung nagre-regulate ng practice ng mga physicians. Then other laws which are applicable, no, we also have RA 9711, okay, the Food and Drug Administration Act of 2009. We also have the Philippine Pharmacy Act, no, na RA 10918. And we also have, I think relevant din po yung Data Privacy Act ng 2012. Okay, we have RA 10173. So we have sufficient legal framework, sufficient laws na nagre-regulate po sa pag-practice at the same time po kasama na rin po yung sa mga tinatawag na nating pag-prescribe ng kung ano-ano. So these are well regulated by our existing laws. And then itong intended measure po na tinatawag nating Telemedicine Act, okay, ang kanya pong maging responsive siya sa panahon po natin, napapanahon po ang act na ito or ang legislation po na ito, no, dahil una, okay, nasa yung communication na po natin ngayon, iba na po, no? At the same time consuming talaga yung pagpunta mo pa sa clinic. Kung ang yung isasangguni naman, i-consult, pwede naman po sa telepono. Okay, so napapanahon po talaga ang ating pong Telemedicine Act para maging responsive po sa lahat ng pangailangan po ng mga Filipinos. And I believe po, protected pa rin ang mga rights ng Filipinos because we have other existing legislations na mag-curtail sa anuman pong potential na pag-abuso ng ibang tao po sa intended measure po na ito, including malpractice, ma'am.
Ayan, talaga naman po may mga batas pa naman na nagpoprotekta talaga sa accessibility ng medical care, po. At saka talaga tama po kayo na iba na po ang form ng communication natin, pati nga work nauso yung work from home. Hindi po ba nakakatipid din sa transportation,
Yes, ma'am.
At kung minsan mas nagiging mas maganda ang quantity ng trabaho or quality even kasi nakapahinga yung tao. So ganun din siguro para sa ating mga doktor at ating mga pasyente, it works both ways. Mas mag-i-increase ang capability at accessibility ng ating mga doktor kung maitutuloy po talaga itong legalizing, kumaga i-legalize na ang telemedicine at magpo-provide na ng mga provisions or guidelines kung paano po ito isasagawa at nang sa ganun ay ma-maximize at wala pong maaabuso kay pasyente man o yung doktor ay hindi po maaabuso. Napakaganda pong proposal ito. So we want to thank you so much, Attorney Cathy Valencia of SIBAC Party List for this at nawa po ay maisabatas na po itong Telemedicine Act. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Attorney
so much,
Cathy.
Ma'am Katag. Thank you so much po sa inyong programa. God bless po.
Huwag po kayong aalis dahil magbabalik pa po ang Tapatang Diyos at Bayan at mas malalim pang pag-uusap ang tungkol dito sa telemedicine at iba pang mga issue tungkol sa ating kalusugan. Huwag po kayong aalis.
Sometimes you don't even have to be on a video call. Phone call, talk to the patient. The important thing is there has to be an interaction wherein we can give them instruction.
Welcome back to Diyos at Bayan. Tapatan na po tayo with Dr. Marivic Villa. She is a certified pulmonologist with over 20 years of clinical experience and she is a COVID specialist. She has studied post-COVID and immune-related health patterns in some 5,000 plus patients and she serves as a chair of the World Council for Health in Florida. She works with an international research team and is committed to educating communities on complex health issues with clear, practical insights. Ayan, welcome po to Diyos at Bayan, Dr. Marivic Villa.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, wherever you are. Kata, I am very happy to be here and thank you for having me.
Yes, we're excited to have you, Doc Marivic, because I remember during COVID, we were watching you a lot, okay? Teaching people, training people for us to learn how to adapt to the situation. And of course, we also know that because of the pandemic, it also gave rise to telemedicine, where doctors started practicing their profession by allowing consultations online. And I believe this has been a big help because people continued receiving health care in spite of the situation. I believe you yourself practice it, Doc, no? And how important or how relevant was it during the time that telemedicine is available or was made available?
Yeah, it was actually a big help because the access is so much better because during that time, we remember there was so much restriction in doing in-person consultation or even people socializing. So it was actually a big help both for us and especially for the patient. And it was a faster access. And actually, I think it was already we had the technology, but it was precipitated or it developed much faster just because the situation asked for it. And it was not only here in the Philippines, but obviously in America, everybody was practicing that or doing the telemedicine because they allowed us to do that and be covered by insurance. You know how it is in America, it's very big when it comes to insurance coverage. And so I was doing it the whole time. And I liked it.
Even Filipino patients had access to consulting with you because of the telemedicine, hindi po ba?
Oo, and hindi lang pati Pilipinas, pati it's literally sa buong mundo. As long as you had the internet access, yeah, there was a connection. And I cannot overemphasize this, that the access to medical help was, much easier. I was seeing patient in Africa, I was seeing patient in Europe, and I was seeing patient practically everywhere, all over Asia. But syempre, tinawag tayo ng Pilipinas, so I had to come.
So our plugging lang, no? Pwede pala kayong kumonsulta kay Doktora. Mamaya we will find out how we can call her. Pero magbabayad kayo, ha? Pinag-usapan natin earlier in this episode that, fair, all is fair in love, hindi po ba? But Doktora, kasi po, naman, ang Pilipinas, rural, maraming probinsya, and a lot of our kababayans have no access kasi, even to the internet. So, medyo mahirap yung telemedicine. That's why there's gonna be a law that's gonna be passed or being proposed so that it can be legalized, that the practice of telemedicine will be legalized and accessibility will be made also up to the rural areas of our country. So I just wanted to share that good news with you po.
Oh, that's very good. And sometimes you don't even have to be on a video call. It's a phone call, as long as you can really talk to the patient. The important thing is there has to be an interaction, a good, clear connection between the doctor and the patient, wherein we can, communicate properly, give them instruction and all that. And sometimes I was actually seeing patient in some center and we're being helped by the nurse. Like when we see patient, I need to know the vital sign of the patient, the blood pressure, the temperature, heart rate, weight, and things like that. So there's also another person, which is usually the nurse, helping us. So the nurse usually tells the doctor, what's happening with the patient physically.
That's very good news, no? And we really hope and pray that it will happen to the Philippines as a regular practice. But Doctora, you became popular with us during the COVID pandemic, because you had a lot to say about COVID, what it really is, and what should be done and what was done wrong during that time. Doc, can you just give us a brief on your findings about COVID? Was it real? Was there really a virus that is transferable? And could it have been avoided? I mean, I have these questions because, we were wondering why all of a sudden it became a global phenomenon and a global problem that only one organization, the WHO, the World Health Organization, was dictating upon all governments. And all governments started following. But there are certain people like me, for example, I refused to, well, that was in the coming of the vaccinations. But at the same time, we were all stuck at home, we were all hiding, we were all afraid to go out. There were certain rules, only people with a vax card can go out and buy. I mean, that happened here in the Philippines, So it was difficult. Doc, ang dami ko nang sinabi. We want to hear from you. What is COVID and what did you discover?
Yeah, in reality, number one, the virus was real, okay? And it was contagious, but at the same time, it didn't have to be the way it was approached. Meaning, because the first thing that disappeared was our freedom, no? Especially the freedom to decide for ourselves. And they just declared it that they need to what do you call it? There was a lockdown because they want to protect everyone, at the same level, meaning it doesn't matter whether you're old or young, it's just the entire world was closed down. So there was no movement, but that was wrong. We found out that really the vulnerable people are the old people, number one. Number two, those people who have chronic diseases. You see, they included the children in that lockdown. They were not susceptible because, as we found out, the virus will not infect the children unless they are chronically ill or they have chronic diseases like cancer and all, because the children, they don't have a mature, we call it the immune system, or the cell of the children, they don't have the receptors in the cell that the virus can latch on. You know, remember, everybody's talking about the spike protein. It has to get into your cell. It has to attach to the cell, to the human cell, to infect that cell. The children, they don't have the receptor. So how is the virus going to infect them? And we know now that why they did that, because they were going to roll out that vaccine. It was actually about the vaccine. You know, there was a virus, but we could have contained it by doing the standard public health approaches.
Can you talk to us about the different viruses that came, and what are its effects on the body? Because like you mentioned, the vulnerable, the old, the sick, chances are, gonna get sicker, but maybe not because of the virus, but because of their pre-existing condition. And then, Doc, there's also the other thing that was later on discovered, that there were a lot of even young men and athletes developed myocarditis. And these people were vaccinated. So these are things that we wish to understand, because we want to be warned as well that, we don't always have to just give in our rights, like you mentioned, and our freedom. We have to know. We have to know, and we also have to do our own research the way that you did your research, and now we're discovering these things. Doc, ano po ba itong mga COVID na to, at bakit bigla na lang yung mga kabataang lalaki malulusog ay na myocarditis eventually at namatay pa yung iba?
So, first of all, I want to emphasize to everyone that this is not a vaccine. You people, you have to remember this. This COVID vaccine is not a vaccine. You know that when they, for them to be able to get an authorization for this to be deployed, they had to change the definition of vaccine. You know, this is the first time that they actually use the mRNA technology. That's very different. The conventional and the traditional definition of vaccine, it has to be part of the organism, not a program, not a message, or not something that you copy. So this is a very new, it's not a very new technology, but it hasn't been proven that it's actually going to work. The only reason why they use the technology, because it's faster to make. And so if I'm saying this is not a vaccine, what is it? It's a gene therapy. It's a genetic message. So basically, how does it work? It's called mRNA technology, and the way they did it is they put it inside a drop of fat, which is called lipid nanoparticle. And so that lipid nanoparticle has the ability to go anywhere in your body and can infiltrate any cell, or can go inside a cell of any organ system, any part of your body. And that is very dangerous, because it's not supposed to go to the brain. If it goes to your brain and it start doing things that it's not supposed to do, it can go to the heart, and it can go everywhere, okay? So the effect of that, and everybody knows, or at least the medical community, we know the lipid nanoparticle, which is the vehicle that is carrying the mRNA, it's very inflammatory. It can cause reaction that is very detrimental to our body. And it can penetrate, or it can go to the brain, And you have to remember, the blood-brain barrier is actually one of the most difficult part of our body that can be penetrated, and that's because it has, you need to protect the brain. and the lipid nanoparticle carrying the mRNA can actually go into the brain, into the heart. And so once it's there, it can create inflammation. And that's one of the reasons why, those athletes, the young men, for some reason, they were the ones susceptible. So the lipid nanoparticle carrying the mRNA goes to the heart and it creates inflammation. It triggers like formation of blood clot. That's how they get the heart attack, the myocarditis, the pericarditis, and that's how they die and get an acute heart attack. The reproductive organs also were targeted because if you look at the data coming out of the Pfizer study that they gave to Japan and to Canada, the vaccine, or at least the lipid nanoparticle carrying the mRNA, were detected everywhere in the reproductive organs, in the heart, in the brain, everywhere, in the bone marrow. And so when they say that if you inject it to your arm, it stays there, that's one of the very first biggest lie that they told the public. Out of the people, because they are so fearful and they think that the COVID infection is going to automatically kill them, then they would just do whatever it is. But in reality, there was no safety study anywhere that they can produce, and they targeted the senior population. They actually aggravated the situation even more because it creates the same problem or the same disease, or sometimes even more, the same disease as the infection. So I call that now, you have to make a choice. Which one is worse, the infection or the injection?
The way to actually prevent or even fight these viruses is to have a good immune system. Siguro po, Doc, bago po tayo mag-bye-bye sa ating programa, can you just give us some tips or advice? Ayan, magte-telemedicine tayo ngayon, nasa television medicine, magkakonsulta tayo kay Dr. Villa. What can people do, even now, to prepare, for example, for an upcoming virus again? Or like you said, andyan lang sila, no? Nandyan lang yung virus. Anong preparasyon ang pwede nilang gawin? Unang-una, para hindi sila tamaan ng virus. At pangalawa, kung tinamaan na sila ng virus, ano po yung pwede nilang gawin?
Ang unang gusto pang sagutin, hindi ko na kompleto yung sagot ko dun sa unang mong tanong. Tapos na ba ang COVID? Unfortunately, hindi pa po. I mean, we have that dream that, it's behind us. Pero ang nangyari, di ba, during the height of the pandemic, that was the acute phase. And then it went to yung parang sub-acute siya because it's more than a year and people are still getting sick. Ngayon po, nasa tinatawag na tayo na chronic state. And the problem is, yung yung coronavirus, nag-mutate pa sila. These people who created the vaccine, they know that it's not going to work because the coronavirus keeps on mutating. You create one vaccine, by the time you deploy the vaccine, the virus has already changed. So it's not going to work. They've known this since 1970, that it cannot be resolved by creating a vaccine because it's not going to work, because the mutation is so fast. And they thought that deploying the mRNA technology will solve the problem. Hindi. And so ang nangyayari is you have a vaccine, it's a non-neutralizing vaccine, kumbaga, at hindi niya namamatay hindi niya pinapatay completely yung virus, so it's actually allowing it to continue to survive and mutate. So, ngayon, kung nagkaroon na kayo ng bakuna, na-infect kayo before, there are practical things that you can do. Unang-una, there are 5 principles that I follow when you are affected either by the infection or by the injection. Number 1, you have to do everything to reduce your spike protein load. Kasi, di ba sinabi ko, it's the most toxic part of this whole thing. That's the one that's causing the disease. There are other things or other components of the vaccine that can actually make you sick, but the spike protein that is being produced is the number one, is the major uh, um, uh, disease-causing entity of this whole thing. Number two, uh, any disease is caused by inflammation, and so you have to do everything to reduce it. And then part of that, you reduce the inflammation if you decrease the spike protein load in your body. Number, so the other thing is obviously your lifestyle. I actually tell people you have to have an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And the number one thing that you have to do is the food. The food, and you have to be as clean as possible. Number three, you have to reduce the amount of toxin that is going into your system. And the vaccine and the spike protein are very powerful toxins. So what are the other toxins? The pollution, even the air, how good is it? The food again, the water. So all these things, they need to be addressed even if at the personal level, but actually our healthcare authorities and the government should be paying attention to this because they're all interrelated. You know, you have to reduce the toxicity because it's like a domino effect. You have toxin, you have inflammation, and you have disease. Number four, we need to aim at reducing the diseases or when you have spike protein, you create new diseases. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy to treat these diseases because they don't respond very easily to the conventional treatment. Okay? And number five, you have to, this is a very strong statement. I want all the vaccine, not only the COVID vaccine, to be stopped for now until we actually see where they are, what is the safety profile, or what is the long-term effect of this. Because if you look at all this vaccine, we don't have any safety or long-term safety study. And this is how we got duped by these people. If it's a very strong word to describe that, but to me, they didn't care. Basically, they didn't care if you got sick. They didn't care if you died, and that's the shortcoming, really, of that.
Doc, we learned so much from you today. There's so much more to discover and to learn from you. How can our audience reach you? Do you have a website where they can read, watch, whatever researches you have already done that we can learn further from? And I also heard that you are coming up with a book already very soon. So maybe that's something that our audience would like to have access to. So Doc, saan po kayo maaabot ng ating mga manonood? May website po ba tayo?
Ang pinakamaganda po ay I'm on X, nasa Facebook din kami, at nasa, I believe it's in Instagram. So if you go there, meron pa akong page at nagpo-post ako doon ng mga information, how you can help yourself. I even have the spike protein detox protocol na pwedeng sundin ng mga tao. So you visit my Facebook page. I'm on X, and you will see on X, I don't restrain myself from saying whatever it is. It is what it is, and I will say it to you what it is. And then I write things on Substack. And so those are the, what do you call those? The social media accounts where you can find me. And please do follow me or follow us. And you're going to have a lot of information that will help you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marivic Villa. I hope we can have you again on the show sometime. And thank you very much for coming to the Philippines and personally attending to meeting doctors and people like me who are curious and want to learn more about this situation and hopefully do something about it as well as you are doing something about it. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
At yan po ang Tapatang Diyos at Bayan, tapat na pag-uusap sa mga mahalagang issue para sa lahat.